which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. North to south, coast to coast, around the world, this is the Wells Report. Good morning, I'm John David Wells. What do we do on this broadcast? We report the news, honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. We make commentary, which is not news. That's opinion, yours and mine, and so we debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. And once again, good morning. This is Thursday, November 30th, year of our Lord 2023. Time now for the front page news digest since yesterday's broadcast. And while we were asleep, the Israeli-Hamas war is continuing to work through hostage exchanges and hostage prisoner exchanges. The truce in Israel, the Israel-Hamas war, was extended for another day. That was minutes before it was set to expire. This from USA Today. A temporary truce between Israel and Hamas has been extended for another day, according to Israel's military, making it the second extension of the 4-day agreement that was set to expire yesterday. The Israeli Defense Force said yesterday the temporary truce with Hamas will be extended for a 7th day in light of the mediators' efforts to continue the process of releasing hostages and subject to the terms of the agreement. Hamas and Qatar, which had been mediating between the two sides, confirmed the extension. The Qatari Foreign Ministry said that the agreement is under the same terms as the past, under which Hamas has released 10 Israeli hostages per day in exchange for 30 Palestinian prisoners in custody of Israel. Last-minute disagreements earlier yesterday included Hamas saying Israel had rejected a proposal that included 7 living captives and the remains of 3 who were in the group that were killed in previous Israeli airstrikes. Israel later said Hamas submitted an improved list, which led to the extension just minutes before it was set to expire. Hamas, for its part, has reported that 3 hostages have died. The Israeli military said it was investigating the veracity of a Hamas announcement Wednesday of this week that 3 Israeli hostages have died as a result of former Zionist bombing in the Gaza Strip. That's a quote, apparently prior to the start of the ceasefire. Al-Qassam Brigades, the military wing of Hamas, said in the Telegram post that Shiri Silverman Bibas, 32 years of age, her 4-year-old son Ariel, her 10-month-old son Kafir, have died. Quote, the Hamas terror organization continues to act in a cruel and inhumane manner. The Israeli military said in a statement, the responsibility for the safety of all abductees in the Gaza Strip lies fully with the terrorist organization Hamas. The Bibas family released a statement to Israel's I-24 News, saying it was awaiting the report to be confirmed or hopefully be refuted soon by military officials. The statement also thanked people who had reached out to the Bibas family and put them in the warm embrace of the entire world. The husband of a freed U.S. hostage is still in captivity. This from USA Today. Liat Benin Atzili, who teaches high school and serves as a youth guide at the Holocaust Museum, Yad Vashem in Jerusalem, became only the second American hostage to be released during the truce. She and her husband, Aviv Atzili, were kidnapped from Kibbutz near Oz in the Hamas rampage. U.S. authorities believe 7 or 8 Americans remain captive in Gaza. We remain determined to secure the release of every person taken hostage by Hamas during its brutal terrorist assault on Israel October 7th, including Liat's husband Aviv, said President Biden in a statement. Benjamin Netanyahu says that Israel will go back to the fighting until the end, amid hopes for a longer-lasting peace raised by the current truce and exchange of hostages for prisoners. Israel's Netanyahu has steadfastly maintained the war will resume when the ceasefire ends. He reiterated that stance this Wednesday in an X post. In the last few days, I hear a question. Will Israel return to fighting after this phase of returning our abductees is exhausted, said Netanyahu, according to the Google translation from Hebrew. So my answer is unequivocal. Yes, there is no way we are not going back to fight until the end. Elsewhere in migration news, migrants are dying at a record level near El Paso in the El Paso sector. This according to USA Today. This year, migrants died in the harsh landscape in the Rio Grande, in the desert, in neighborhoods, and on city streets in numbers never seen before at the border crossing known as Paso del Norte. Yet no stones mark the places where they died, only numeric coordinates inked on police reports. They are among the migrants whose names are known. Many more died without identification. Yet back home, the families who depended on them don't forget. The survivors mourn. They shoulder the cost of an American dream cut short. I don't remember a time when things were like this and not feeling any hope as I look toward the future, said Ruben Garcia, the executive director of the El Paso Annunciation House, who has provided shelter and humanitarian assistance to migrants for 47 years. More Americans are moving south. Southern states grew by 1.3 million people last year, making it the fastest growing region in the U.S. This according to data from the U.S. Census Bureau. The South experienced a growth of 1.1% over 2021, largely driven by domestic and international migration. Since 2018, the South has experienced increasing year-to-year net domestic migration and is the most populous region in the U.S. at 128.7 million people. During the same time period, northeastern states lost 219,000 residents to other states. The Midwest lost about 50,000. Meanwhile, the West was the only other region to see population growth, though it was modest. It gained 153,000 residents. That was a 0.2% increase. Iran is at it again. The Cyber Avengers, which is a cyber group linked to that country, has attacked a Pennsylvania water system. This from USA Today. Federal authorities are investigating a computer hack of a Pennsylvania utility provider that is believed to have been targeted by an Iran-linked cyber group looking to disrupt Israeli-made technology in the U.S. On Saturday, the Iranian group Cyber Avengers hacked into water authority infrastructure in Aliquippa, Pennsylvania, a city about 18 miles northwest of Pittsburgh. This according to local authorities. The group took partial control of a system that regulates water pressure and one that includes technology manufactured in Israel, according to Water Authority Board Chairman Matthew Motz. This is very direct. It's using the internet as a weapon, said Max Kilger, a cybersecurity professor at the University of Texas, San Antonio, who has closely followed the news surrounding the Pennsylvania case. Elsewhere in big tech, Apple has unveiled an update to ease communications with Android. This from USA Today. Apple announced earlier this week it will support Rich Communications Services, or RCS, for iPhones to help ease the green and blue bubble divide. The update will come later this year, next year, and will work alongside the company's iMessage system. Quote, we believe RCS Universal Profile will offer a better interoperability experience when compared to SMS or MMS, according to an Apple spokesperson. The announcement comes years after years of resistance from Silicon Valley, punctuated by Apple CEO Tim Cook telling a reporter for The Guardian to, quote, buy your mom an iPhone when asked about improving the compatibility between Android and iPhone messaging. Tech rival Google said it's happy to see Apple adding RCS to iPhones. We welcome Apple's participation in our ongoing work with GSMA to evolve RCS and make messaging more equitable and secure, and look forward to working with them to implement this on iOS in a way that works well for everyone. This according to a statement from Google. In political news this morning, governors are colliding. These are the DeSantis-Newsom debates. Well, there's only one right now, but we'll see if they continue to do more of them. Ahead of 3 presidential candidate debates next year after 3 previous primary ones, Fox News will host a debate mainly unrelated to the 2024 election. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and California Governor Gavin Newsom will battle it out in Alpharetta, Georgia, in what the network is calling, quote, the Great Red versus Blue State Debate, unquote. Political talk show host Sean Hannity will moderate the broadcast without a studio audience. Throughout the debate, Hannity will highlight a variety of issues in each state, including the economy, the border, immigration, crime, and inflation, according to the network in a news release. With the West Coast and East Coast governors not running against each other yet, the broadcast likely will be 2 hours of bragging and dragging, according to USA Today. Elsewhere in politics, the lawmakers are brawling over Hunter Biden testimony. This from USA Today. Representative Jared Moskowitz, the Democrat from Florida, hit back at Representative James Comer, the Republican from Kentucky, after the Republican lawmaker referred to him as, quote, little Moskowitz jumping up and down, unquote. This is in an interview earlier this week. The latest battle between the lawmakers started after Comer told Newsmax on Tuesday that Hunter Biden, President Joe Biden's son, should testify in a closed-door deposition before speaking at an open hearing, accusing some of his Democrat lawmakers of interrupting witnesses. Hunter Biden this week responded to a House subpoena for testimony about his overseas business deals, but offered to testify at an open hearing rather than a closed-door deposition. Quote, as these hearings go, you got 20 members on each side that have 5 minutes each. We have tens of thousands of pages of documents. We need to sit down and ask specific, substantive questions without filibustering, without interruption, without going 5 minutes back and forth with Jamie Raskin, Dan Goldman, and little Jared Moskowitz jumping up and down, filing motions and trying to disrupt committee hearings, said Comer during the interview. As you know, there have been many oversight committee hearings that have been disrupted with all kinds of parliamentary issues and points of order, etc., and the chairman, James Comer, is trying to avoid that this time around. News from the Catholic Church. The pontiff, Pope Francis, has told his weekly audience that he is not well. Pope Francis attended his weekly audience with the public at the Vatican. This happened Wednesday of this week. He said he was not well after canceling a trip on doctor's orders earlier in the week. Francis, who is just weeks away from his 87th birthday, had a flu-like condition and inflammation of the respiratory tract. He canceled his planned trip to Dubai for the United Nations Climate Change Conference. He had been scheduled to leave Friday. Pope Francis accepted the doctor's request with great regret, and the trip is therefore canceled, said Bruno Mattei, a spokesperson for the Holy See's press office. On Wednesday, the pontiff asked an aide to read a prepared speech and said in a soft voice he was not well and that speech would not sound pretty if he read it. And finally this morning, Henry Kissinger, a world statesman who indelibly shaped U.S. foreign policy, has died. Henry Kissinger, a German-born American diplomat who shaped U.S. foreign policy in the second half of the 20th century and won a Nobel Peace Prize for brokering the end of the Vietnam War, has died. His death was confirmed in a statement from his consulting firm. He was 100 years old. Kissinger was the most celebrated U.S. statesman in modern times, helping former President Richard Nixon establish U.S. relations with China, negotiating the 1973 ceasefire with North Vietnam, reaching Cold War détente and arms agreements with the Soviet Union, and conducting shuttle diplomacy to diffuse Middle East tensions. Kissinger, at the same time, was an intensely controversial figure and a lightning rod for critics of President Nixon's foreign policy, particularly in conducting the Vietnam War and its expansion into Cambodia, which was followed by the rise of the genocidal Khmer Rouge. He was hailed as a brilliant strategic thinker, a Harvard-educated political scientist who wielded power with pragmatic conservatism, sometimes described as realpolitik or hard-nosed political realism. Henry Kissinger, dead at age 100. And that is today's front page. Thanks very much for joining us today. I'm John David Wells. Coming up a little bit later on, we're going to spend some time discussing the news of the day, as we always do, up to and including some of the things that are going to be discussed throughout the day, specifically the Hunter Biden testimony. Also, there is news that Anthony Fauci is going to testify before Congress. That ought to be something that we can look forward to. Also, a story that we're following. The Supreme Court of the United States is looking at a case that very well could rein in executive branch powers regarding a separations of powers dispute. The oral arguments were yesterday. We'll give you a rundown of the way things lean and how the tea leaves are being arrayed as we continue on the Wells Report. Our telephone number, 817-379-2172. Give us a call. We'll be right back in just a moment.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
This is the Wells Report. Hi, good to have you here. It's Thursday, the longest work week of the longest work day of the work week. I'll get my words in the right order here in just a couple of moments. Yeah, for those TGIF fans watching, sure happy it's Thursday. You know, when you sit down and you go to a spa day, you know, you're expecting to be pampered and so on and so forth, but one of the things you don't really expect is to have your face short-circuited. This is not a joke. When somebody sits down for a typical spa appointment, says USA Today, Hannibal Lecter is probably not the first thing that comes to mind. However, getting what's being called a galvanic facial. Involves a mask that looks very much like the Silence of the Lambs villain. Yeah. It's a pricey treatment. It involves running electric current through your skin of your face. At one studio in Southern California, the current is administered while the client wears a brown mask, similar to the muzzle Anthony Hopkins wore while playing the fictional killer in the movie Silence of the Lambs. The facial is a favorite among skincare enthusiasts. Dermatologists say they need to do more research before they can give their stamp of approval to sending electricity into the face in the name of wellness. Quote, I would tell patients to wait a few more years until there's some better research out there, says Danilo Del Campo, a Chicago-based dermatologist. Then he goes on to say, it seems to be a very promising field. I'm hoping that there might be something that might come out of it. Yeah, I'm worried about what might come out of it. Remember back in the day when your parents used to say, oh no, you better not leave that look on your face. If the wind changes, your face will stay that way. I'm paying attention to people that do weird things to their face in the name of beauty. And all I can tell you is that I don't think that I want something to go wrong with a galvanic facial treatment that makes my face look like this. I just don't think that that's the right thing. I could be wrong. And the reason that I say this is because of Dana Delaney. I think Dana Delaney is gorgeous. I think she's beautiful, and I think she's an incredibly great actress. But she will tell you that she ruined her face with injections that actually destroyed nerve tissue in the name of getting rid of wrinkles. You remember those shots? Yeah. Yeah, those are not good. And she literally crippled her face. Now, I can't see why this wouldn't happen either. I'm pretty sure that the way this works is that it actually flexes the muscles of your face in a way that your normal nerves don't necessarily move them, in a way to try to tone your face and not look like this. But I'm not going to zap my face. And I don't think you should either. I think you should wait not just a few years before there's more data and research and so on. I think what you ought to do is, I think you ought to wait like a decade, maybe 2, 3, 4 more decades. That's what I think you should do. Or you could go see the guy that rebuilt my face after I broke it riding a bicycle, Dr. Josh Rivette. He'll be more than happy to help your face. You know, I'm just saying that, yeah, this is not a great way to look better. Especially using electricity. I mean, you know, just remember the look on your face the first time, say, for example, you got a really good static electricity charge. Yeah, imagine that sticking around for a while. Imagine overloading the nerves in your face and killing a bunch of them. Come on, are you nuts? Do you remember ice sculpting? Remember how they froze, literally gave you frostbite on the fat rolls of your body? Turned out to make some people look like they had just visited the dark side of the moon. Although I don't know whether or not anybody did ice sculpting on that portion of their anatomy. Oh, come on, think about it. This is the Wells Report. John David Wells at your service. Senator John Kennedy, the senator from Louisiana, got into a weapons fight, and then there was somebody that decided to dismantle the left's main argument against weapons. We'll talk about that as we continue here on the Wells Report. This is Thursday. It's the 30th day of November, 2023.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost. How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
This is the Wells Report. We do news, honestly and fairly. We de-propagandize the mainstream media. We debate. In other words, we have a discussion of the news every day, and I hope you find it enjoyable. If you do, please pass it along to your friends. Make sure you share this broadcast with as many people as you think might find it valuable. Also, give us those likes. Those thumbs ups mean a lot to us. And, of course, you can subscribe, because subscribers make the world go round in this podcast world. So Republican Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana and Dr. Megan Ranney of the Yale School of Public Health got together to discuss gun violence and the death toll because of guns in the United States. The conversation was actually quite good. And I thought I'd bring that to you because it ignited a bunch of feedback from conservatives all across the nation. This is that conversation, or a small part of it, here on the Wells Report.
Let me ask you this. Why do you think that Chicago has become America's largest outdoor shooting range? Do you think it's because of Chicago citizens who have no criminal record, but who have lawfully a gun in their home for protection, or perhaps for hunting? Or do you think it's because of a finite group of criminals who have rap sheets as long as King Kong's arm?
So Mississippi, Louisiana, and Missouri actually have higher firearm death rates. Obviously, there's certain.
What about Chicago?
So I don't live in Chicago. It's not my primary area of research.
You don't have an opinion on that?
I think there's easy access to firearms combined with environmental conditions, lack of great education. There have actually been studies showing that when you green vacant lots and repair abandoned buildings in urban neighborhoods, you see decreases in gunshots, in violence, as well as in stress and depression in the neighborhoods around them.
No disrespect, Doc, but that sounds a lot like word salad to me. Let me ask you this. In September of this year, our New Mexico governor issued a public health emergency order, and she suspended the right to bear arms in Albuquerque and the surrounding county. Do you support that?
I do not. What I do support is the work that New Mexico has done
do you support that?
No.
You don't? Okay. During his first 2 years as the DA in Philadelphia, District Attorney Krasner and Loster dropped 47% of all the illegal firearms cases in the city. Do you agree with that?
I'm not a lawyer. I'm a physician and a public health professional. I can say that New Mexico has done amazing work in trying to address the suicide and partner violence.
I'm asking about Philadelphia.
I don't have an opinion.
The DA dropped 47% of all the illegal firearms cases. Did he do the right thing there?
I don't have an opinion. However, I will say that just as with fentanyl, the spread of illicit substances.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but I'm
That's
running
okay.
out of time.
Understood.
The LA District Attorney, George Gascon, said that he would not prosecute any sentencing enhancements for guns or gang-related activity. Do you think he did the right thing?
Again, I am neither a lawyer nor a prosecutor.
You don't have an opinion on that?
I honestly don't know enough about it to have an opinion.
You don't think gangs should be prosecuted for having illegal guns?
I'm neither a lawyer nor a prosecutor, and that's not my area of research.
But yet you want to take guns away.
I've never said that I want to take guns away.
Law-abiding citizens.
I think that you are saying something that I've not said in my written or oral testimony, sir.
You equated gun deaths to heart disease in your opening statement.
Yes, sir.
Which is a greater public health problem, gun deaths or heart disease?
So heart disease does kill more folks across the United States, largely in the end of their life.
700,000?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Gun deaths about 50,000?
Correct.
Do you support outlawing fried foods?
I'm sorry. How does that relate to?
Because fried foods contribute to heart disease, don't they?
Again, I have not written or said that I support
You're
outlawing.
a physician, right?
I am. Have I said that I support outlawing anything in my testimony today?
Okay.
So that was a very good conversation insofar as Senator John Kennedy is a brilliant lawyer. What he did was he asked some questions and the Yale professor evaded, saying that she wasn't a legal person. She didn't live in any of the towns that he was questioning her about, and so on and so on. And then he started talking about heart disease as, for all intents and purposes, the number one killer of human beings in these United States. 25% of us will die of heart disease. And that's contrasted, 700,000 is contrasted between somewhere around 50,000 gun deaths every year, half of which, little more than half actually, are suicides. And then she decided that she didn't want to talk about that either. But what the senator had done was brilliantly said, okay, you can evade this question by saying that you're a doctor and so on. Well, let me put this in the context of medicine. And she still evaded, which was brilliant. I thought she was negotiating, or excuse me, I thought she was testifying about things that she wanted to testify about. And I believe that indeed Senator Kennedy decided that there was more to the story, as there is, because we find ourselves in a position where the left, and certainly Yale is of that group, and probably this professor, that believe that somehow the punishment of some 165 million legal gun owners over the actions of a handful is somehow justified when there's so many other things that kill more of us. The exchange generated backlash on social media, as you might expect, from conservatives who pointed out the gun homicide rate in Chicago is much higher than those states per 100,000 people. Additionally, some took issue with Ranney's seemingly random selection of 3 red states while pointing out crime statistics are the most useful at the local level where crime is actually handled. Data reviewed by Fox News showed that Chicago's gun homicide rate has ranged from 25 to 29 murders per 100,000 people since 2019. In 2019, Louisiana, Missouri, and Mississippi, the states in question, saw 12.5, 9.3, and 13 gun homicides per 100,000 people, respectively. Let's see. Reason Magazine associate editor Billy Binion posted on X. He says some recent stats. Mississippi's gun homicide rate, 13 murders per 100,000 people. Louisiana's gun homicide rate, 15 murders per 100,000 people. Missouri's gun homicide rate, 11 murders per 100,000 people. Chicago's gun homicide rate, 29 murders per 100,000 people. John Law, the president of the Crime Prevention Research Center, posted on X, why did you just pick a couple of states to compare? Is that how public health researchers do research? Why don't you look at local crime rates where policing policies are determined and where DAs and judges are almost always elected? Well, the circumstance there is that George Soros was able to elect a whole bunch of DAs around the country. And those statistics where the Chicago DA and the Philadelphia DA, in the case of Philadelphia, decided to not prosecute 47% of crimes that involve guns in his city. If that is not an advertisement for people to just grab a piece and go out and do whatever it is that they want to, I don't know what would be. You know, all of this statistical garbage is just that. It is statistical garbage. Now, I have to point out, for fairness, this Yale professor, Dr. Ranney, picked Louisiana, Mississippi, and Missouri to talk about homicide rates involving guns. Well, the response to that by conservatives was to take that pool and make it even smaller. In other words, they're saying, well, what about Chicago? The simple case of the matter is that when there are states that have more people in them, this is why Mark Twain said there were lies, damn lies, and statistics. This is what they're talking about. This is what he's talking about. So in big cities, most people don't want to take their guns out and start blasting away at their neighbors. Most people. And there are millions and millions of people living in New York, Chicago, LA, Philadelphia, et cetera, et cetera. So most people don't believe guns are any kind of a solution. So when you start talking about the statistics of how many people are shot or killed with guns, you put that against a pool of 7.5 million people, as opposed to, I don't believe that the state of Mississippi, let me find this out. I probably should have done this beforehand, but let's see, Mississippi total population, population. The total population, 2.95 million. That's not anywhere close to the number of people that live in New York City. So these statistics, they try to sort of hammer them down by saying per 100,000 people. But when you start thinking about the gigantic pool that is out there, and most people don't want to shoot anybody, let alone kill them, the statistics are skewed low for big cities run by Democrats. This is just simple, truthful news. And so when you start thinking about all that, you go, oh, wait a minute, there is another side to that story. And these statistics are indeed warped and distorted for political purposes. Now, one other thing. The most important way for us to look at this is to make the pile of people bigger. There are 330 million Americans living in the United States. There are approximately 165 million gun owners. Somewhere north of 99.5%, it's actually even a smaller number, ever use their weapons against another human being. If you take the numbers of people that actually use their weapons against another human being, the majority of those are people defending themselves, not going out and trying to rob a liquor store. And then you get back to, and let's go ahead and make it even bigger from a political standpoint. These are people that say that, and this is going to sound a little weird, but just go with me on this. There are people from the left who say that Israel should stop bombing Gaza because it's collective punishment of the Palestinian people. Well, when you consider 165 million gun owners who would never, ever shoot any other human being unless it was absolutely required, you consider the absolute smallest percentage of people that actually do use weapons in crime, that actually do take guns against other human beings. Collective punishment is trying to essentially tell law-abiding citizens that there are criminals and they are the problem. That is not the case. That is not the case. What we've seen in this political climate is we have seen that money talks and people listen. Well, you don't buy political offices. But we've seen George Soros do exactly that when it comes to district attorney races around the country. And they have enacted policies that are tearing at the fabric of our society. There is one other thing I'd like to point out. We see all of this, all of these gun crimes in real time. Because the news cycle is 24 hours, 365, 7 days a week. It is constant. There are multiple big-time news agencies that are reporting on all these stories. It would make you think that indeed this happens a lot more than it actually does on a per capita basis. Because we just didn't hear about these crimes. We heard about the most heinous. But these people that talk about how there are, let's do this one. Let's do this statistic while we're criticizing statistics. Let's see, mass shootings. Let's see. Let's go 2023. Mass shootings in 2023. So far, according to the reporting at large, ABC says the U.S. has had at least 565 mass shootings. That mass shooting is identified as an incident in which 4 or more victims are shot or killed. All right. So there have been 565 mass shootings so far this year. Now, the thing about that is that those mass shootings occurred long before we had this news cycle, long before you could go to a computer and literally open up information from across the globe on any topic that you could possibly think of. Those shootings happened a lot, but we don't know anything about them because we're still just beyond the leading edge of this information age, something that Alvin Toffler called future shock. And future shock is real. Too much information bombarding us way too often, every single day. But we seem to be able to tolerate it. But it also can be manipulated for political purposes. And this is a great example of that. I thought I'd share that with you. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Go to our chat room. You can find that at Facebook, YouTube, X, Twitch, and Rumble and Patreon. Back with more in a moment.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
This is the Wells Report. You'd think that after Nicholas Sandmann had collected hundreds of millions of dollars from major news sources, that they would have figured out that they have a problem. But not the case. A Kansas City Chiefs fan, a small kid, he's like 9 years old, got called out by the sports politic at large, and it's blowing up in their face, thankfully and deservedly. Check this out.
I'm just having such a hard time keeping track of all this racism. But it gets even more ridiculous. The mother of the young fan is saying her son is Native American. It turns out Holden Armenta, the 9-year-old getting slandered, has Native American blood. His family lineage, the Chumash tribe. They hail from California, an ancient people with a rich history on the Pacific coast. Holden and his family used to live on the Chumash reservation. So if anyone's entitled to paint their face and wear a headdress to a Chiefs game, it's Holden. Here's Holden at the Super Bowl last year. Holden can wear whatever he wants, and Americans can wear whatever we want. We agree, and Kansas City agrees too. It's why the Chiefs fans are planning to wear black and red face paint to the next game to show support for Holden, who's not only a proud Kansas City Chiefs fan, he's a proud Chumash Indian. Let's bring in Holden Armenta and his father, Bubba. So, Bubba, what was going through your mind the second you found out your son had been targeted like this?
It's been a lot. It's been a pretty crazy couple of days. I was mad, upset for him. Mad that he's upset. He's pretty devastated. I mean, he's seen the videos and everything posted. He's excited. He's all over. It was his dream to get on the Jumbotron. And I've had family and friends call and, oh, we saw you on Sunday Night Football. So he's excited. But then everything else came up, and it's been a little bit of a spiral.
Holden, how are you feeling right now?
It's okay because a lot of kids at school are getting excited, but it's starting to get me a little nervous because if they go a little bit overboard, it's a little scary.
I bet it's scary. It can be a very overwhelming experience. How has the community been in terms of support?
Okay. So far.
Good. And you're a football guy, right? Don't you have practice in a few minutes?
Yeah, we're getting ready to head out the door for all-star practice.
What position do you play?
Wide receiver and free safety.
It's amazing. And how big of a Chiefs fan are you?
Really big.
And what does it
Because
mean?
we went to the Raiders
Go
Chiefs
ahead.
game last year, too.
Nice. And what does it mean now that you're feeling all this love from Chiefs Nation? Everyone's going to be wearing red and black on their faces next Sunday.
Really good.
So, Bubba,
he asked me 10 minutes. He asked me 10 minutes ago if he can paint his face before we go live.
I mean, he can do whatever he wants. He's a great Patriot. He's a great American, and he's a great fan, and everybody loves Holden. But Karen over at Deadspin doesn't. Bubba, would you like an apology? What would you like from Karen at Deadspin?
You know, I don't even know what to think about that. It's a little too late for that. The damage is already done. It's, worldwide. Now there's comments all over. There's, disrespect towards Native Americans and towards my family. We never in any way, shape, or form meant to disrespect any Native Americans or any tribes. The tribe we're from doesn't even wear that type of headdress. This specific headdress is a novelty piece. It's a costume piece. That's exactly what we had purchased it for and wore it for. Not in any disrespect towards any Native Americans at all. And it's been a whirlwind of comments coming even from other tribes, from tribal members. Some think it's okay, some think it's not okay. It's a 9-year-old boy supporting his team.
Yeah. And a cute little 9-year-old boy. And I find it interesting that his name is Holden and his dad's name is Bubba. Anyway, let's move on. So when you think about this, Dan Le Batard was one of the guys that was hammering Holden on his broadcast. He's got a podcast too. And Le Batard was talking about how ridiculous it was and how the entire gesture was racist to both Black Americans and Native Americans. And then Jesse Waters found a picture of Dan Le Batard in the exact same face paint. Yeah. By the way, the dishonesty, they say a picture speaks 1,000 words. When they took the picture that inflamed all of this mess of Holden, they took a picture of the right side of his face. You'll notice that there's a vertical line, black and red, and they only took a picture of the black side, which tells you a little bit more about just exactly what's going on when it comes to racial journalism in these United States. And to move forward without having all the details, like, for example, the kid is a Native American. Those are the kind of mistakes we have policies to avoid on this broadcast. Why is it that nobody else follows them? I learned them in high school. It's not like they're a mystery. Hour number 2 is coming up next.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
Hey, thanks for joining us this morning for the Wells Report, and make sure you share us with all your friends on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, Patreon, and don't forget to check out our Substack column, which will be coming up a little bit later on this afternoon. When you do all this, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you give us those thumbs up. They are really important. Check the notification box so you know when we're on the air, and whatever you do, join us every morning, Monday through Friday, 9 to 11 a.m. Central Time, for the Wells Report.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. Good morning, I'm John David Wells. What do we do on this broadcast? We report the news, honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point that out. In short, we depropagandize the mainstream media. We make commentary, which is not news. Commentary is simply opinion, both yours and mine, and so we debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. A quick programming note. I'm going to take a few days off here. I'll be back on Wednesday of next week. We are going to take some family rest time and hang around with each other and enjoy our company. So I hope that you do some of that during the holiday season, and I hope that you're having a wonderful day so far. There is a story that isn't especially sexy or exciting, but it is critically important to the United States of America, especially from a government context. This is not a political thing. This is an endemic problem, a structural manipulation of the separation of powers of the U.S. government that obviates the representative government that this nation is based on. The Supreme Court of the United States is hearing a case, has heard it, as a matter of fact. The oral arguments were yesterday. And that case brings up what could be a sea change in the way that our government does business, in many cases, against the people of the United States, the people they're supposed to serve. What they end up doing is they end up interfering as opposed to serving. And that is not what is the basis of any executive branch agency. The Supreme Court, according to USA Today, yesterday appeared ready to side with a hedge fund manager and former radio talk show host who claims the Security and Exchange Commission violated his constitutional rights by relying on the agency's in-house judges rather than letting a jury from the American justice system decide whether he broke the law. The appeal from George Jarkiszi has the potential to spill over into other critical areas and weaken the government's ability to enforce workplace regulations or punish polluters who violate environmental law. It's one of several cases before the court this year attempting to undermine what conservatives often deride as an administrative state. Now, let's take a look at some of this. The Supreme Court of the United States ruled against the EPA with regards to the EPA's use of their regulation. In fact, in this first paragraph, the government's ability to enforce workplace regulations or punish polluters who violate environmental law. In point of fact, regulations are not law. They have not been adjudicated as such or voted on by the nation's representatives. They have not been signed by the President of the United States in many cases, in most cases. What they've done is they've got an executive branch agency that just says, these are the rules and this is the way that works, and that's the way it is. Well, except that it's much more difficult than that when you start thinking about the fact that this nation has a constitution and this nation has laws, and what we're discussing are not laws. They talk about environmental law. What environmental law? There are environmental laws on the books, and they make sense. But the regulations that have been imposed by the EPA were set aside by the Supreme Court for the fact that it doesn't have any basis in actual law. And the Security and Exchange Commission is the next to find itself under the gaze of the Supreme Court from a separation of powers circumstance. This is essential. All of these regulations must be passed into law by the representatives sent to Washington, D.C. to do the nation's business. And they are not. There's some sort of sketchy agreement that keeps the Congress from having to vote on all these things. And that is that the various agencies have the permission from the Congress to operate in this area. And earlier in the United States government, in the history of the United States government, and specifically what is called the administrative state, most of the laws of the United States were respected. But as more and more people who have more and more extreme agendas revolving around environmentalism or any number of other things, workplace safety, for example, as those things became the purvey of the left or people like the left, these regulations became more and more draconian until eventually you found yourself in a position where you had a shadow government, an administrative state imposing its will on the people of the United States without representation. We fought a revolution over that. Now, do I think we're anywhere close to that? No, not really. Are we closer to it than any other time in my lifetime? Yes. Because the government is overstepping its bounds. And the Supreme Court is doing what it needs to do to be able to rein that in. And they have signaled many times, and there are more cases like this that are going to be adjudicated by the Supreme Court. They've indicated several times that they are going to take action against those people who believe that their regulations, their ideological-based insistences against the American people are followed as law. Because the Supreme Court, pretty picky about the laws that are on the books. And this is a good thing. This is a very good thing. This will change the nation, especially if what happens, at least in the model that I see, that all these regulations are debated and passed as law by the Congress, signed by the president, etc. Because right now, none of us have any impact or input. Now, there are public hearings where people say, where these agencies say, okay, we will more than happily listen to the American people with their comments. But strangely, the actual commentary period that we hear about, and this is once again one of those statistical things, the actual public testimony has very little impact on the agendas of these agencies, especially when they're run by the wrong people. They're appointed posts, they are not beholden to the public, and yet they impose their will on the public without representation. By the way, these cases are playing out when former President Donald Trump, campaigning for the White House in part of a promise to dismantle the federal deep state by reducing the size of government agencies, and what USA Today says, weakening civil service protections. Well, let's talk a little bit about that. You can have it two ways. You can either be a civil service employee, and we had this for decades, if not centuries, where indeed people had a strict set of workplace rules when you worked for the government, whether it was the federal government, state government, county government, local government. There were civil service regulations. And those regulations essentially protected the interests of the civil servants that worked within those organizations. Well, that's fine. I don't have any problem with that. But then, for whatever reason, it became legal to have a union of federal employees, and they're huge. There's a huge number of people working for the government of the United States, and those unions theoretically are empowered to look after the working conditions of those people in the membership of their unions. There is, however, a problem with that. Like most unions, the wrong people are running them. They become political action committees where they put out endorsements for president or vice president or this or that, et cetera, et cetera. Those endorsements are very valuable because theoretically, the myth is that the union membership, the rank and file, will vote in a block based on the political leanings of their leadership. Now, while that may not necessarily be as strong as, say, the media wants to portray it as, or say the unions want to portray it as, it's still a substantial amount of political power. And when you start thinking about that political power being reported on by the mainstream media, it becomes a very serious, loud voice. So as far as I'm concerned, you have a choice. You can either live under civil service regulations when it comes to your employment, or you can be a member of a union. If it was up to me, well, there wouldn't be any federal service unions. There wouldn't be. Because like I said, they end up creating this huge pile of money that is thrown at various candidates for various reasons. Most of those kind of circumvent exactly what we're trying to get done in these United States. The government should serve the people. The government should not serve the interests of gigantic unions or gigantic corporations or political movements that ignore the Constitution as part of their operating bylaw. So the cases are playing out. And yes, the president of the United States, the former president, Donald Trump, is going to do what he can to dismantle the deep state. This is a different subject. The deep state formed itself as, once again, political action committees, the CIA, the IRS, the DHS, the Justice Department, the DOJ. All of these organizations became political and started enforcing their laws and enforcing their regulations as law based on politics, not based on what they should be doing for a living. Perfect example is the DHS. The DHS is the Department of Homeland Security. Just exactly how secure is this homeland? It is more insecure now than it ever has been, ever, because of politics. The re-demographying of the United States of America by importing the poorest of the poor from the worst countries anywhere on the planet. They're called banana republics when you start thinking about those things, because banana republics often supplant reality, supplant service to the people for politics on such a regular basis. There's a government, then there's a coup, then there's another government, then there's another coup. And they do not follow the law of their land unless it has a political advantage, which is disastrous. And that's happening in this nation. It is not something that can stand. No country can stand it. Now, when you start talking about the deep state, we had the director of the FBI, the National Secret Police. We had the director of the CIA, the director of National Intelligence, the secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, the secretary of the IRS, all of the people running these gigantic organizations playing politics with their decision-making. That led to all of those organizations coming together to sabotage Donald Trump's presidency. When you start talking about how these coups actually happen, you got to have the media, check. You got to have the secret police, check. You got to have intelligence, check. And you've got to have the people that are responsible for the security of the state, check. And they all came together to try to sabotage, destroy the presidency of Donald Trump. The people of the United States, whether you agree or disagree, put Donald Trump in that office. They were serious about it. They fired the political process, and the political process fought back. It cost lots of people their jobs, and should have. And so, when you start talking about the Supreme Court of the United States, this is a subject we're going to cover, because the Supreme Court of the United States needs to do something about this. They need to disarm these non-law enforcement agencies. And Donald Trump, if he becomes the president again, will indeed get politics out of the secret police, out of intelligence, out of Homeland Security. And that is not some kind of authoritarian ploy to try to give himself more power. That is an opportunity to stop the government from running roughshod over the Constitution of the United States and the Bill of Rights.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
This is the Wells Report. I am John David Wells. Thursday in progress. It's the 30th day of November. December right around the corner. We're in the home stretch toward Christmas. Like I said earlier this hour, I'll be taking a couple of days off. I'll be back next Wednesday. I may be dropping by in all the various social medias that I have to make a comment or two or three or four. But I'm planning on spending some time with my family these days, these next few days indeed, and I hope you do as well. We were talking about third world countries and banana republics and the way their governments lord over their people. And we see a lot of that here in these United States. Attorneys are demanding changes in a Maryland police department after filing a federal lawsuit on behalf of 4 roommates, claiming police officers illegally entered their apartment without a warrant and unnecessarily shot their dog. The dog was paralyzed in the shooting and euthanized after that. The lawsuit filed this Monday against Prince George County and 3 Prince George County police officers is seeking $16 million over the June 2021 incident, which the lawsuit claims followed a decades-long pattern of misconduct. We'll keep filing these suits until police in Prince George counties are reformed, such as they don't do these kinds of things anymore and are properly trained to deal with and interact with the public by respecting their constitutional rights and being kind, rather than brutal as they were here. I had the great privilege of filling in on WMAL radio as a matter of course. I spent an awful lot of time, and that station is in Washington, D.C. And Maryland has long been called the People's Republic of Maryland, insofar as there is what some people call draconian law enforcement there. And that seems to be the case, at least being described by this lawsuit. Here's the basic story. Officers were responding to a report of a dog bite at the apartment complex where Erica Razo Sanchez, Dari Amaya Benitez, and Brandon Cuevas lived. This, according to the lawsuit. Graphic body camera footage released by the roommate's attorney shows when the officers received no response at the door, they obtained a master key from maintenance, entered the apartment. Another attorney for the roommates, Malcolm Ruff, told USA Today that was a critical moment in the incident. Yeah, that's what they call illegal search and seizure. Everything they did after going into the apartment was illegal, he said. From inside their bedroom, Benitez and Cuevas asked if the officers had a warrant. One replied they did not need one because they had probable cause, according to the suit and the footage. They better have a sworn affidavit in order to claim probable cause when it comes to that dog biting thing. And that's not going to be difficult to chase down. Benitez came out of one bedroom with her hands up. The officers attempted to handcuff her over a dog bite. Court documents said Umana and Sanchez then entered the apartment. An officer slammed Umana to the ground. Amid the confrontation, Cuevas and Umana's dog, a boxer mix named Hennessy, left the bedroom. According to the suit, the dog was approaching Umana when the officers panicked and shot the animal with their guns and a taser. The officers then handcuffed the roommates, put them in police vehicles for an hour, according to the lawsuit. It was a nightmare, Sanchez said at a press conference. I held Henny's bloody body, while she was dying in my arms, while the rest of our family was wrongfully detained and denied ability to check on her. The dog was taken to an animal hospital, euthanized, because it was permanently paralyzed, according to the lawsuit. The county offered to pay for the animal's medical bills if Umana did not speak publicly about the incident. She declined that offer. We don't know the whole story. We're not sure what was going on. But if my dog saw somebody that it didn't know slam one of us against the floor, chances are very likely that Odin would probably have an objection to that, and very likely may end up eating a bullet just like this boxer did. I'm not exactly sure that that's a good thing. In point of fact, I've had police officers from Fort Worth come to my house, and my dogs were brilliantly trained, as Odin is, and so there was no problem. But these are the kinds of things that authoritarian states do. It's time for Maryland to back away from that, don't you think? This is the Wells Report. Stick around. Coming up in just a couple of minutes, the very latest in the food fight regarding Hunter Biden. It's next.
nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost. How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
You know, the Democrat Party has a problem. It's Hunter Biden. and the Biden family. It has long been known by people of both sides of the political spectrum that the Biden family has been doing some very serious things that could indeed have impacted American policy. The DOJ refuses to investigate. The idea that people that are charged with enforcing American law will not do so when their political buddy is one of the people that needs to be investigated is reprehensible. And this is not something that is a partisan statement on the part of this reporter. This has nothing to do with that. What it has to do with is whether or not we're a nation of laws or a nation of politics. A nation of politics will not stand, as we've seen, as we've talked about on this broadcast. A nation of laws has a chance, depending on the quality of human beings that are enforcing those laws. The Biden family has, as I said, long been known for playing fast and loose with an awful lot of very serious rules, at least skirting the boundaries of bribery and peddling influence. And when you start thinking about where the sources that have been talked about that have been giving money to the Biden family, what those sources are, China, and you start thinking about Ukraine, you start thinking about all that, you start wondering just exactly how much of American policy is involved in paying back the perhaps purchased services of some of the nation's highest offices, including the highest office in the land. The DOJ won't do anything about it. The Congress is. They are under withering attack for doing so by the mainstream media and by leftists and Democrats alike. And I can see that it would be very disturbing for these people to see what the Republicans are doing, especially since they seem to be making headway. More about that coming up with a video report in a moment. But the Democrats have a problem. And the Democrat problem being Hunter Biden, perhaps at the very center of this influence peddling game. And I'm just saying perhaps, I don't know. They are being defended vociferously by people that do not want all of this to come spilling out before the American people during an election year. Now, I'm not a big believer in holding things back, waiting for an opportunity to start, shall we say, making huge charges against people that the American people will decide about. I'm not a believer in that. I believe that when there is evidence of a crime and there's probable cause to indeed investigate it, that it should be investigated right then. And that does apply to the political circus that we deal with in the United States, in my view. I know that the Republican Party is waiting until next year to start spilling all of this stuff out. As a matter of fact, it started now. And again, you'll see more of that in a second. And I don't believe in that. I believe in reporting the news as it happens. Oh, by the way, speaking of reporting the news as it happens, he bravely interrupted himself, breaking all kinds of rules. Let me go to this alert from ABC News that just happened a moment ago. Former President Donald Trump, this is from 10:06, by the way. Former President Donald Trump is on trial in New York on a $250 million civil lawsuit that could alter his personal fortune and real estate empire that helped propel him to the White House. And what had happened is that there was a pretty serious gag order involved in that trial and others that had to do with the president in his trials. It's now being reported that a New York appellate court has upheld the gag order, which is going to propel it into federal court, where it will very likely be turned aside. The appellate division of the New York courts has ruled that the gag orders in place that currently are existent in this $250 million civil lawsuit will indeed stand. They base that on what they call a plethora of death threats against the court clerk that President Trump derided in social media. Which brings me to something else that I have tried as best I can to reach as many people as possible, and please help me in this. Do not make threats against people that are on the other side of your political ideology. Don't do it. It gives the government, in this case, the New York courts, an ability to essentially suspend the First Amendment rights of a former president and a current presidential candidate. Think about the advantages politically when you do things like that. Well, you can't talk about this because we just don't believe you should be able to talk about it. And that comes down as a court ruling. If you're a law-abiding citizen, you obey the courts. But when that is out of the mainstream of constitutional experience in these United States, then things begin to get very, very confusing. And more confusing leads to unrest. More unrest leads to tension, fear, and people do stupid things like, oh, I don't know, threaten a civil court clerk over something that happened in a courtroom that has really nothing to do with anything except that's turned into a gag order upheld by the New York appellate courts, and now is in a position where they're saying, well, there are too many threats against this person. Don't make those threats. Don't make those threats. Stop it. It invites the government into draconian action. Stop it. Please pass that along to all your friends. So breaking news that that gag order has been upheld. It'll probably go to federal court. It'll be set aside there. Meanwhile, back at the Hunter Ranch, the politicos are beating each other up over the idea that Hunter Biden is at the center point of what could be a bribery scandal that involves the President of the United States and American policy. And the circus is a well-known legal way of confusing the people who are observing these discussions to the point where they really can't make heads or tails out of it, or they get frustrated and angry about the way this is coming down, and aspersions get cast, and the din of the argument begins to override the merits of the argument. Representative Jared Moskowitz hit back at Representative James Comer. He's the Republican chairman of the House Oversight Committee. After the Republican lawmaker referred to him as Little Moskowitz jumping up and down, the battle started after Comer told Newsmax that Hunter Biden, President Joe Biden's son, should testify in a closed-door deposition. There's a subpoena out there. It calls for a closed-door deposition, which was immediately disrupted by Hunter Biden's very good attorney, Abbe Lowell, who then said, no, let's make it all public. And of course, I believe in that. But then again, you have to start thinking a little bit more about some of these other oversight hearings that have been interrupted and filibustered and messed with by the Democrat Party in those committees. Endless points of order, endless objections, endless things essentially that are all parliamentarily legal, but create this confusion, this din, this food fight that everybody just goes, screw this. No, we can't screw this. Because at the end of all of it, you got to find out exactly what happened in a straightforward, objective, truthful way. Not something you find a lot of in Washington, D.C., especially when it comes to the political aspect of all of it. But since the DOJ will not pursue this case, there's very little left for Republicans to do than pursue it themselves. And the Democrat Party realizes that their way to salvation in all of this is to make it as big a mess as humanly possible. And that's what they're doing. There are serious charges. Now, we don't know anything about these charges except for what is being said. And what is being said is important that you know. This comes from Jason Smith, who, by the way, is the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, the actual financial aspect of the House of Representatives, looking into all of these deals. He had this to say earlier this week.
Thank you all for being here today. Thank you, Chair Stefanik, for having us. Most Americans, they work hard to provide for their families. They follow the law. They pay their taxes. But the Biden family has been playing by different rules. Two brave whistleblowers came forward to expose the political interference impeding an investigation into the tax crimes of the president's son, Hunter Biden. These are serious, credible IRS investigators who risked their career to come forward. Amidst threats from those representing the president's son that anyone prosecuting the case would be committing career suicide. And as one might expect, they provided substantial evidence backing up their testimony that we have reviewed and released over the course of our work to hold government officials accountable. In the days since their initial testimony, we have learned that President Biden wasn't just aware of his son's business dealings. He wasn't just involved, but he appears to have directly benefited from them. This directly contradicts what President Biden said throughout his presidential campaign and while being president. We have learned about what can be described as the International Bank of Joe Biden, a lending scheme that saw special loans to Biden family members repaid with funds from Chinese executives. We have learned about a Hollywood attorney acting as a special benefactor by paying off at least $2 million of Hunter's tax debts in order to keep it out of the press at the beginning of the 2020 campaign. When confronted with this potential campaign finance violation, an assistant U.S. attorney refused to investigate because, quote, she was not personally interested in pursuing it. We have learned that DOJ officials went out of their way to remove the mention of political figure one, AKA Joe Biden, from search warrants. As Ways and Means Chairman, there are three major aspects that fall into my committee's jurisdiction. First, we need to get to the bottom of what exactly happened at the Department of Justice and the IRS to impede the Hunter Biden investigation. Did Joe Biden use his administration to protect him from the scrutiny? Second, the Biden family appears to have used numerous accounts, transactions, and loans to mask the flow of money. If these loans were in fact legitimate, they should be interest income. There should be interest income reported on tax documents. Was such reported? Third, how did Hunter and his associates move money through the many shell companies that have been identified? Is there tax information that would help explain the complex web the Bidens created? Over the next week, the Ways and Means Committee will take further action to pursue the truth and follow the facts wherever they lead. We will be holding a hearing with the IRS whistleblowers to discuss the investigation as well as releasing additional material that they have provided. The American people expect no less.
They do expect no less, except that the din and argument and political football and food fighting is making us tired. This is another reason why when you have information, you need to put it before the American people as opposed to waiting for a convenient time politically to damage your opponent. That is something that is also of need of discussion in this particular context. From what I've seen, there are receipts involving all of those charges. There are things we've seen with our own eyes. And I have called for and continue to call for the Biden administration, the Biden family to step forward and come clean on all this. In fact, from a political standpoint, I think that's about their only chance. That is about their only chance. That they have not done so, and this is a supposition. And you have to keep in mind that this is all supposition. I do not believe in any kind of conviction in the media, even my own. But they have to come and talk. Hunter Biden needs to talk. He needs to put all this stuff down and start talking. It looks as though the Biden family is considering the idea of protecting Joe Biden at the expense of Hunter Biden. And that would be a family tragedy in America that none of us, any of us, ever want to see. We can't get tired. We cannot tire. We cannot forget. We have to follow this through. I just wish that Republicans and Congress would behave in a much more reasoned way in an effort to find the truth. Whether you're a Democrat or whether you're a Republican, you need to find out whether the government of the United States is indeed bought and paid for. And that is where I stand. Where do you stand? 8173-792172. Back with more of the Wells Report in just a moment.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
This is the Wells Report. Hi. Henry Kissinger died yesterday. He was 100 years of age when he passed. He was a German-born American diplomat, academic, presidential advisor, who served as Secretary of State for 2 presidents and has left his indelible stamp on U.S. foreign policy. A statement released by Kissinger Associates said Kissinger died at his home in Connecticut. Kissinger was both revered and controversial, praised by supporters as a brilliant strategist, condemned by critics as a master manipulator. Well, you don't become the Secretary of State of the United States without being very adept at manipulation. He pioneered the policy of détente with the Soviet Union right on time. As I lived through the Cold War, détente was a much-needed reduction of national anxiety. He began a rapprochement with China, won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1973 with Lee Duc-Tho when he negotiated the Paris Peace Accords that ended U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War. Some of his policies remain controversial. Journalist Seymour Hersh claimed in 2002, the dark side of Henry Kissinger is very, very dark. He is very, very effective. You cannot be effective by being affable and sweet all the time. Sometimes, as my mom used to say, you got to take it out and show it to him. This is a report from CNN that details the life of easily one of America's most influential diplomats.
I know all of you will want to hear from the new Secretary of State.
Henry Kissinger never really needed an introduction on the world stage again. Kissinger, the most famous statesman of the last half of the 20th century. Celebrated and controversial.
I'm not going to make any sense.
As Richard Nixon's national security advisor and Secretary of State, the diplomat wielded enormous power and influence. So trusted that it was Kissinger who went to China on a secret mission to explore a historic opening of U.S. relations with Communist China.
Whoever went would be alone in Beijing with no communication. And therefore, if he didn't know Nixon's mind, he might do foolish things.
Initially, there were fears a U.S.-China ping-pong exchange match would affect the high-stakes political gambit.
Every once in a while, something happens in diplomacy which transcends the drafting of cables.
Vietnam. Casualties mounted as the Vietnamese gained territory. Nixon and an undiplomatic Kissinger thought more bombing of the North would help.
I would then recommend that you start bombing the defeated others within 48 hours.
Kissinger approved secret bombings of North Vietnamese units in Cambodia without congressional approval. He would say sometimes statesmen have to choose among evils, moral compromises in messy conflicts. Kissinger and his Vietnamese counterpart, Lee Duc-Tho, were awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for their role in negotiating a ceasefire.
I have to say, I have never dealt with a group of people as treacherous as the North Vietnamese leadership.
Kissinger insisted trouble on the home front hurt chances to succeed in Vietnam.
We lost the war because we were divided, and also because we were too uncertain about what we wanted.
Kissinger's support for a coup in Chile and pro-U.S. military strongmen in other parts of the world drew criticism.
Arrest Henry Kissinger for war crimes!
Kissinger's legacy would be contested decades later when he testified in Congress at the age of 91. Kissinger grew up in Germany with war clouds swirling. His family fled when he was 15.
About half of the people I went to school with, and about 13 members of my own family, died in concentration camps.
A Jewish Secretary of State who would later listen to his president criticize American Jewish leaders.
It's about goddamn time that the Jew in America realized he's an American first, a Jew second. Well, I couldn't agree more.
I only heard anti-Semitic comments when some Jewish group would attack him for something he had done.
In the Middle East, Kissinger performed what came to be known as shuttle diplomacy to separate Israeli and Arab forces, setting the stage for future peace accords. When Nixon resigned as president, Kissinger stayed on as Gerald Ford's Secretary of State. His opinion still widely sought after by governments and businesses after leaving public office.
You want to leave your country better off than you found it. And there's nothing in private life you can do that's as interesting and as fulfilling.
There was one job Kissinger said he never got to do in his life, a sports announcer.
Derek who?
However, the globe-trotting diplomat did star in some of history's biggest games.
Henry Kissinger is going to be one of those people that are studied throughout the human existence because of the things he did. I mentioned that détente was a much-needed safety valve of tension and anxiety in the United States when he pioneered that. But that shuttle diplomacy that you're talking about, or that they're talking about on this CNN report, which was brilliant, by the way, is something that a lot of people don't realize the import of. In 1973, during the Yom Kippur War, Israel rolled out its rockets and nuclear weapons because they thought that the end had come for the Jewish state. When you think about the work that was done following that by Henry Kissinger, when you think about all of the things that led us to the avoidance of what would have been nuclear war in the Middle East, you've got to look at Henry Kissinger. Henry Kissinger could have won many more Nobel Peace Prizes, but he only got one for the end of the Vietnam War. Henry Kissinger, one of America's greats, a legal immigrant coming to the United States, doing exactly what he said he was going to do, which was leave the country better than he found it. The executive producer of the Wells Report is the great Dirk Steele. I'm John David Wells. I'm taking a few days off. See you next Wednesday for another edition of the Wells Report. God bless all y'all. Thank you so much for being with us. Take good care. And as I said, we'll see you later on down the road. Take care.